As a group, I feel that we definitely succeeded in interpreting a disease that is unfamiliar within our generation from the perspective of our youth. We presented our young audience with a perception of the disease that they may not have ever seen or experienced before, by actually allowing them to physically experience the Alzheimer's for themselves. Furthermore, I would argue that our piece works well overall. It's both entertaining and thought-provoking and encourages our audience to think, which is what we intended for our performance. Additionally, I also feel that we succeeded in presenting our audience with variety so that they could relate to the performance in more ways than one. For example, our performance incorporated dance and music and song and singing and language and movement. By exploring various forms of performance in our piece, we created diversity, and I feel that we fed the audience more content that they were able to relate to and be entertained by. One of our major weaknesses in the devising process is that we would constantly compare our piece of theatre to existing pieces of theatre. And for example, in the initial devising process, we all read the naturalistic play The Father, and The Father is extremely different to the piece that we were creating. It's naturalistic and it allows the audience to sympathise with the characters as they gain an emotional connection to them through the naturalism, whereas ours is very abstract and stylised, and it's hard to establish a connection with something that doesn't always make sense. By comparing our piece to other pieces of theatre, we would find that we would often doubt our work and therefore spend large quantities of rehearsal time creating scenes that we would later decide to cut, which was a weakness to our piece because it meant that we wasted a lot of time in the initial process. In future work, I would definitely reevaluate difference being a bad thing. Just because our performance doesn't necessarily exist in the drama world, that doesn't mean it's negative. Furthermore, in future work, I would also define the line between discussion and rehearsal. In the initial rehearsal process, we spent a lot of time discussing our ideas, and by conveying these ideas in the rehearsal space, it meant that we spent less time getting up and physically producing work. And by constantly entering the rehearsal space in the mindset that we were going to discuss, it meant that this became a habit, that every rehearsal we would do, we would spend 2 hours of the rehearsal discussing when we should have discussed prior to the rehearsal, so that when we got into the rehearsal space, it was solid, productive work.